Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure and happiness to host this incredible team of panelists here. Don't deserve any introduction, but keeping the tradition in mind, I have with me SL Sharma ji, who's representing Uttam Sugar. Then I have Manohar ji, who's representing Jawahar SSK Limited, Kapil Nema from Dalmia, and of course, our very incredible Rahil Shaikh ji for lifting all our mood. So, of course, we have a big crop coming next year. My first question to all the panelists, are we looking at or should we expect higher sugar exports next year? What should be the number? SL Sharma ji, if you could start.
Good morning, everybody. Whatever Rahul ji said, it is almost based on their assumptions and details which being collected from various sources. So it is clear from the crop at Maharashtra, which is being planted and already planted in the month of October and July, August, September. So the numbers at Maharashtra will be better with comparison to the current season. Similarly, in UP also, we expect that it will be better because of this 2-3 variety has damaged a lot in UP and all the part, specifically in the western UP, because of this pest and disease, which mostly affected of 238 area. So all the farmers are now intent to this convert the variety from 238 to other varieties, which 118, 15023 and others are on. So we expect that in UP also the numbers will be better in the next season. Similarly, the weather is also good. So definitely we understand and we think that export numbers will be better than current year. So whatever is the numbers are there, it will show in the future, but definitely it will be better than current year.
Good morning, everybody. About the numbers, last year it was good numbers with opening stocks. After the stopping on 7th December to go for ethanol, fun syrup and be heavy, we have good opening stocks. But plantation 24-25 with heavy rains all over the country, I hope the next year, 25-26, is likely to be a good year, good production year as far as numbers are concerned. This study shows that it is around 33, 30 to 4, maybe up to 35 after diversion of ethanol. Yesterday, we have some presentation about the India sugar production, which shows it is around 38 after diversion of ethanol, considering the past experiences and the production capacity built up for ethanol. So this year may conclude up to 27, 27 and a half, 28. And with these numbers, government is very, very happy because they are very happy because the reason is the prices in the domestic markets are stable. And keeping in view the good production next year and plantation this year, the import of 1 million ton, they are strategically planned in advance in this year itself. It indicates that is more window will be open for the next year, and I think it is a most advanced stage of policy making. What we see last day, the Joint Secretary clearly shows that in his remarks, that's 1 million ton. We are very happy. When the production figures slightly go down this year, but looking to the next year production, plantation area, I hope the next year will be we are coming with a good number from the government. One hope, keeping in mind, if government is took a decision about the next year exports, numbers may differ from 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, but the decision should be at an advanced stage, like declaration of FRP in the month of September. If a government declares the indicative quota of export, so it is better for all sugar millers to go for raw. So for this year, raw is not possible because of the decision to taken in the month of January, on 21st of January. So keeping in view the past trends, the present status, and the plantation this year, we hope we are expecting the good number of export for the next year. Thank you.
I'll keep it simple. I'll go with since we are talking about next year, I'll go with numbers what Rahil Bhai mentioned. I think with decent rains and decent, reservoir levels, especially in Maharashtra and Karnataka, it gives a lot of incentives to farmers. One thing which I've always learned, believed, and always have told everyone is rain makes cane. If there is rain, farmer will automatically goes for cane. It's for them. It's a lazy man crop. Farmers in Maharashtra and Karnataka, I'm not saying they're lazy, but they prefer the most remunerative crop, and for them today, I mean, by all means, is sugarcane. So, a decent plantings, we saw a little bit slowdown of Arsali plantings, but pre-seasonal and seasonal plantings have been very, very good. And seasonal planting, in fact, is going on, and now after post-harvest, we are also seeing new areas coming under plantations, and we believe almost next year the plant return ratio is going to be around 70-30, which in fact will mean better yields, better recovery, and which eventually will lead to a bigger crop. Keeping 37 as a gross number and 29 as a consumption number, around 8 million surplus is there, which will get distributed between ethanol and exports depending on how the ethanol prices are. I think last 2 years, as industry, we have learned a lesson, that committing for ethanol is now for third year is going to be a little slow game. Unless there will be clarity on the ethanol prices, the diversion might be a little low, and which eventually can result in more exports.
I think I've already covered it. I think Kapil have summarized it very well. I think so. We'll have a surplus of about 7 to 8 million tons next year. The idea is, as I just mentioned, that already on B heavy, we are seeing a slow supply for the current year at these prices. So just to give the number, I think we are at 3% by the end of December on the B heavy total supplies committed. So, so I think for next year, if we have a gross surplus of say 7 to 8 million tons, out of that I would expect that if you saw my presentation, I haven't increased the ethanol blending. I kept it at 4 million ton, 4 million diversion. So I think we will left out for 3 to 4 million tons as surplus sugar, which we can afford to give it into the export market. But this delta will only be known once we know the current year production. So if at the current year production, we are at 26, then this delta is 35. And if current year we are at 28, then this delta is 37. So the game is at the end, what is the current year production and then how much do we increase it. So I think anywhere we will be exporting minimum 2 million tons next year. And I think it's fair. I think the industry needs it. And today we don't really need a 6 million, 7 million of closing stock. We are quite capable of starting off plants early. I think वो earlier time था कि buffer के लिए 6 million रख लो, 7 million रख लो. Today the globe is, there is absolute no need to carry a 7 million and 6 million surplus when we can live with 5 million and 4.5 million tons.
Thank you, Rahil. Of course, we're discussing snakes and ladder in the Indian sugar industry. We had about 11 million tons of sugar export couple of years back, and last 2 years, of course, the exports haven't been there. Have we lost sheen in the international market? Do we still have that demand if we are hitting the market? What is your view, Rahil?
We are very minuscule to the size of the world market. I think अगर हम 1 million, 2 million ton की बात कर रहे हैं, तो just look at our neighboring countries. Our neighboring countries are Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, the Horn of Africa. We have 3 port-based refineries in India. So I think we are talking about a very minuscule quantity to these areas. I think it's easily consumable in this part of the world. The only problem comes in is when we lose our market share. It's very difficult to bring it back. It is not easy for us to get our market share back. I think branding of the sugar takes a long time. Renuka is one of the brands which has been established in the market. EID Parry is the brand which has been established in the market. As a generic other Indian producers, we are unable to make that brand because suppose Afghanis calls me and says Jawahar की शक्कर चाहिए बड़ी अच्छी है वो, but इनका कोटा 1900 टन का है. फिर उसके बाद कहाँ से जवाहर लाना? तो आई थिंक we are sellers, we are not choosers to say कि मुझे इस क्वालिटी पे पैसा चाहिए या मुझे ये शक्कर एक्सपोर्ट करके मेरी ब्रांडिंग करनी है. So we lose that part of the segment. I think otherwise 2 million ton export करना बहुत minuscule चीज़ है.
Just to conclude discussions on export for this season and go to other discussions, 1 million ton government is allowed. Are we expecting, do we have still room for a little bit more, or we are satisfied with 1 million ton for this season? Any comment on that?
Yes, at present it is 1 million is okay for the current season 24-25. Don't think about the more export from this production. And for the next year, it should be at an early time, what I said earlier, is around 2 to 3 million in advance so that millers can plan accordingly.
Hello. Anybody wants to add to that, or should I shift gears to something different subject altogether? Kapil, you want to add?
Well, I won't be surprised if the crop is actually north of 27 and a half. Government government figures out by mid of April, they might end up giving some more export quota. I don't want to put a number to it, but of course, on any crop above on north to 27 and a half, more exports is possible.
Fine. So let me conclude the discussions on exports and I'll move over to something more critical. Of course, government has announced the ethanol prices, which ISMA has said that they are not happy with it, disappointed. And what would be the near-term challenges for a year now, if we ask you? What would be your request to the government? Would it be MSP increase or looking at C-heavy molasses? C-heavy molasses we've got, of course, B-heavy molasses and juice to cane. So what would be the near-term challenge? Sharma ji, if I could get it from you.
As you are aware, that ethanol prices has increased only on C-heavy. The allocation by the government in the tender in the C-heavy is very less as compared to B-heavy and syrup. So we do not understand why government only has increased in the C-heavy while the demand is what it was for all the feedstocks. So the cost of production, if you compare with this FRP, then the B-heavy and the syrup prices should be much more than whatever it's exist. So government is government. Government has taken the decision. We have to accept it. Rather, another challenge is this: from October onwards to till December, the sugar prices was very low. Rather, it is being sold lesser than cost of production. From January onwards, it's slightly better as compared to previous months. So cost of production has increased drastically because of this lower recovery, specifically in UP, and cane yield is also lower as compared to last year and earlier years. So cost of production gone very high, and sugar prices are still more or less at par with cost of production, or in some places it's lower also in the month of Jan also. So this is the major challenges. The another challenge is which the farmers are diverting their crop in other crops apart from cane. So we should think over it. Rather, we should to farmers, we should initiate to the farmers for intercropping and increase the yield at farms. So that would be the better solutions. Otherwise, the cane area is lower. Day by day, it is decreasing trend. So these are the major challenges we have, which we have to look into. Thank you.
In my view, the current emerging challenges for the next year is the late rains in the country. What happened is plantation of Adsali in the state of Maharashtra and northern Karnataka is less than 50% what it was in earlier years. That's the bigger challenge for the next year to predict any estimation for 25-26. That's what I think. And for earlier 2 years, 22, 23, 23, 24, the prices of sugar is very under control. So basically the sugar sector is very low profit margin business. And with huge areas, the farmer with the good monsoons may tend to go for another crop, especially where the arsal plantation was there. Almost 40% area is covered under arsali crop, rest under the another crop because with the late rains this year. That's the immediate challenge before the sector.
Kapil, you would like to add?
If you ask me, the biggest challenge going forward for the industry is blending. There's a lot of investment which has gone into putting up distilleries by the sugar industry. As an industry, we were the pioneers who had set up the foundation of this blending, and we brought this blending up to 12% on our old shoulders, and then feeling a little left behind as of now. We want this gap to be filled up by government, and we want ministry to understand that the ethanol coming from sugarcane is equally important like any other feedstock, and this will help sustain the byproduct. The returns which we talk about, the industry is getting decent returns from the byproducts. This will help us sustain, because a lot of things are linked to it. The longer you run the distillery, the better, the more bagasse gets consumed, so your bagasse returns comes. So and your power continues. Otherwise, you go surplus bagasse, and then there are a lot of repercussions to it in case your distilleries are not doing a decent capacity utilization. So that's the main thing.
Rahil, do you want to add or should I ask you a question? Okay, so I better, yeah. So you talked about a formula for MSP. Of course, we know that sugar MSP, there has not been any increase and it's a pain point for the industry. Do you have any formula in mind?
As I mentioned, I was very clear in the presentation is that today technology allows us, and today we have the availability of very intelligent people, present here as well in many associations. I think the idea is it's actually it just needs somebody to put it onto the paper. As Kapil rightly said, the complication is we have Atul Bhai yesterday said that we have created so much complication that we have various rates for various grades of ethanol. Why do we need that? If the sugarcane juice is at 66, maize is at 70, B heavy is at 66, and C is at 49. When you want to maximize things, keep that long-term vision. No, and that long-term vision can only come with a simple and a clear policy rather than complicating a policy. So, I think similarly, I am not an engineer or a scientist here to give a formula, but I think on a pen and a paper, I think it's easily determinable that that if your cane price rise by 100 rupees, your cost of production is increasing by an X amount. And I think you can fairly put the best mill at X values and worst mill at Y values. I mean, you look at Naik Nauresab, if he's around, yeah, I think he's around. He has put a formula of 41.99 rupees as a cost of production on his site. So I think if he has determined it, Government of India can sit with him and dissect each and every cost. And after coming out, I think it's achievable. I think if the people, intelligent people like him, sit with that, there is a formula which is derivable, and then you have sustainable cane, sustainable ethanol. Everybody's sustainable. I mean, why would you want an industry to be a loss making and still want to achieve 20% blending? I think that's something which is beyond comprehension.
Manoj, would you want to add to that? Any formula in mind?
Basically, the sector is very seasonal sector with low profitability, as I earlier said. To derive a formula by any policymakers or any advisory group, it's very difficult. For the country like India, having so many uh, variables are there. Basically, the crop is rainfall. Water is not sure. Availability of water is not sure. So it is very difficult, in my view, to make a consensus on the formula. As far as the losses are concerned to the sugar mills, this is a big concern because ultimately it hampers the cane plantation, which we came to know in a very later stage of the season. So, as I earlier said, is with a good monsoon this year, the plantation of Arsali is not impacted a lot. So, the yield for the next year for the pre-seasonal and suru crop, maybe even we assume it is at an average yield, the impact on the production. Again, the seasonality and low profitability business, which forced to drive a government to intervene on a regular basis to keep the sector at break even.
Yesterday, Union Minister Nitin Gadkari ji spoke about that sugar industry can easily contribute about 3% to the GDP. You're all innovators here. Can you just throw some light on the new products and value additions that is planned in the pipeline? You can just, inform the audience about it. What's been there? What has been the innovation around like?
देयर इज ए हिंदी में एक कहावत है कि जो खेत में उगता है, तो शुगर केन के बारे में, जो खेत में उगता है उसकी जो लास्ट में प्रेस मड भी होती है वो भी वापस खेत में पहुंचती है तो फर्टिलिटी उत्पन्न कर देती है. सो लॉट ऑफ बायो प्रोडक्ट्स आर देयर इन शुगर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. बगास इज देयर, मोलासिस इज देयर, now PDM is there. From this press mud, CBG is also there. So a lot of value additions are there, number of products being created from bagasse also, so that are also useful. Similarly, if we go for this branding and specialty products, which will be helpful for sugar industry, number of products are there, is pharma, cubes, icing, invert, so number of products. And similarly in all food items like flour, this rice, etc., is being sold in a packaged condition. So sugar industry should also think over about it, and they should move towards this packaging industry and specialty divisions. That will be added more as we think. Thank you.
The value additions in the sectors in the form of cogeneration, installation of ethanol blending, production of ethanol especially, then for CBG, CNG, CBG from press mud, all combined together will form around 20 to 20% of the total revenue a sugar mill will fetch. As against this total revenue, we are spending around 70 to 75% on the cost of raw material. All the time, it is the high cost material, sugarcane, and the price is fixed by the central government. And on regular intervals, year to year basis, the government is declaring the cane prices or intervene in the policy to make it uh, business viable. But a long-term policy on the basis of exports, especially, is very important, so that we can make a specialized sugar. Within the raw sugar, there are a number of varieties in terms of ecums and all these things. Refined sugar, like one suggestions that all prices, including ethanol, FRP, they are declared pan-India basis. But about the co-generation, the state government by legislation allowed to fix their prices. So can we put before the legislator the minimum price of per unit of electricity exported? Minimum should be declared by the central government. And as the promotional activity, state government may go further in the price revision. So a consistent policy, a long-term policy for any value addition is very, very key to the sector. We all are talking about the value addition. It is quantified around to 20 to 25% of the total revenue. The balance amount around 78% to 80% coming from the sugar. So sugar is all the time, it is on the high point. And looking to the government perspective to keep the stable domestic market as well as sugar is concerned. So we have to have a long-term policy like ethanol, CBG, cogen at a minimum level in the center. If there is any added advantage that to be given to the miller state-wise, region-wise, that should be in the hands of the state governments. So I think if we go with this view, so the millers may not be in a losing side.
You know, so we are talking about value addition in sugar, uh, you know, which sell. So technically, you know, the consumption, despite the value addition in sugar, remains within within the sugar consumption which is there in the country. I think you know, if we are going to going to a stage we're going to produce almost 700 million tons of cane is where whatever target is, we need to see what other uses are there for sugar and sugarcane. We are seeing now that one of the millers in UP, they have launched a project of making plastic from sugar. And so one that is going to be one big thing. You know, India consumes around 16 17 million tons of plastic, out of which almost 4 to 5 million tons of plastic so far was going into the single use, as a single use, which can easily be you know, replaced by the bioplastics as we go forward. And more than that, you know, I'm very hopeful with SAF. SAF, you know, with the guidelines setting in 2028, uh, we expect that the, you know, the technology, the cost of technology comes down, and more SAF can be invested into, because SAF do solve the aviation fuel issues, but one of the byproducts of SAF is bio diesel, which you know, also solves the diesel blending as well. So there are you know, a lot of avenues where as we grow, as we have more and more surpluses, the solutions will automatically come. I mean, similar thing happened with ethanol. Ethanol was a result of a huge surplus in 1718. So surpluses actually are good now for the industry. They push the industry for new and new revolutions.
I think when you're last, you have very limited to add. But I think as Kapil rightly pointed out, SAF, according to me, is something which is a new thing for us. I mean, we have still not seen a massive investment yet. But I was in Hyderabad last week meeting a company called Greenco, and they were all about, only discussion was about sustainable aviation fuel, and I think renewable energy is something which comes from sugarcane. I think so. I think this sector can be transferred into a energy sector, barring our consumption, which is very big on sugar. I think we are urja sector more now. If we can grow that potential of sugarcane, the idea is, लोग कहते हैं आपदा में अवसर, आई थिंक एक्सेस में अवसर है यहाँ. तो पहले हम सरप्लस कर ले, उसके बाद हम, as मनोहर राइटली सर, डोमेस्टिक कंजम्पशन इतना बड़ा है कि उसके बियॉन्ड फिर हमको सोचना है. तो जब तक गन्ना हम ग्रो उतने लेवल तक नहीं पहुँचेंगे, तो वो एक्सेस से जो फार्मूला फिर निकलेगा या इनोवेशन निकलेगा, दैट इज़ वेयर वी हैव टू टार्गेट.
So long-term bioenergy policy is the need of the hour, very clearly said. Well, before we go to the audience and take their questions, my last and final question to you all. Sugar price outlook for next 3 months or so, if we could just get a little bit direction on that. I'm sure a lot of people would want to know. Anything on that sort? Any direction on that front? And factors that would affect?
As a disclaimer, being a miller, telling that I'm very bullish will be wrong. So I'll say it will be a very constructive market going forward.
Sharma ji, any outlook on prices?
Definitely present, it's a good market. As a miller, we always think that price should be better. So, but certain challenges are there. This MSP is still not increased. Government quota is also hurdle. Government can increase the quota, not doing a rationalized basis. So these are the hurdles which can hurdle the prices. Similarly, faster export is also needed. This 1 million ton should export at a faster level. So that will also impact the better prices. So these are the views. Thank you.
For the season 24-25, it is at par. Assuming the prices we have given at FRP level may not hike before the start of the next season. And past experience about the losses incurred in 22-23 and 23-24 should be partly covered in the season. It is from the miller's perspective. For the next 3 months prices in the country, we are hoping for the good, not best.
Prices next 3.
Sorry, I was saying that sugar prices generally, I believe, is a harvest and a post-harvest game. If you look at last 1 year, 1.5, 2 years, I think sugar must have contributed, must have been 5% down on its peak pricing to the current price. So if you look at last October, we were trading around 37, 38 rupees, 37 rupees in Maharashtra on an S1 sugar. We went down to 33.50. So we are contributing negative to our prices. I think nowadays we are more or less around 36 rupees in Maharashtra, which is the level. I think with the way exports are happening and the harvest is about to end, we should see a constructive price rather than, I mean, we won't see a downslide for sure. I think it should remain in this range and probably a tad higher from this point.
So bullish views all around. Any questions that the audience would like to ask? Yatin sir, Atul sir has questions.
Thank you for that and giving me the opportunity to ask this question. We are halfway through this crop and we still see a variation in the crop number for the current crop, where there's a variation between various organizations of, let's say, 1.5 to 2 million tons, even today, where we are halfway through the crop. So it's still a 10%, 7 to 10% variance between the best number and the worst number. I just want to take this forward and would like the idea of the panelists for the crop number for the 25-26 crop. How far apart are we on the best number and the worst number for next crop? So is it going to be 37 sucrose, 38 sucrose, 40 sucrose? What's the best and worst?
Frankly, yesterday we saw Claudio giving a 25-26 number. And today we have seen, Rahil number for 25-26. These are two numbers as of now which are, publicly seen for next year. And they already 1.5 million tons of gap between that. So it gives you a picture of what is coming forward. I guess the range
Still
is
a smaller gap than what it is for the current crop. I mean, bigger consensus for next year. Yeah, that's good.
So what I was trying to actually say was that our problem actually remains between that 1.5 million tons. We keep fighting for that 1.5 million tons. We forget that, Brazil, which was at 39 million tons 3 months back, is now talking about 42 million tons. So when India swings a million, the world swings by 3 million tons, and still, India still remains an issue. So, this crop, until it is actually fully harvested, you have the last stick taken out from the ground, the numbers never get finalized. So I think that we should be happy with that 1.5 million range and trade around that.
I think at least we know for the next year, more or less the area will be around 5.9 million hectare. I think current year, I think if you look at many numbers were around 5.6, 5.5 million hectare of land. So overlapping में अगर आप देखोगे तो 5.9 million hectare of land, I think we will be under cultivation. And if you look at the way cane number could come out, I mean, we have to see how monsoon comes out. I mean, after that, I personally feel that we'll be closer to around 36, 37 million of sucrose next year, very easily. But it all depends on the delta for this year. So I mean, if we go down, but please understand that as I mentioned in my presentation, that in why the diversion between alternative sweeteners in the range of last 5 years has been 30 million tons of cane to 88 million tons of cane. So we do have the scope to sort of, if the industry has the ability to pay and get those cane back into the yard, I think the movement can be sharp as well.
A final question, Atul sir, would you like to ask?
First thing first, I won't like to punt on next year's numbers now. The marriage has probably just taken place, and how can we start naming the child whether it's going to be a boy or a girl? So I think it's a little too premature to start punting on next year's numbers. Secondly, Rahil, this question is to you. The government of India's carryover stock at 8 million tons, it's effective 30th of September or 1st of October, right? But nowadays, crushing does not take place in October. It actually has moved probably a month ahead, which means it's going to be in November. This year also we started our crushing only in November. So what's your take on that? So October, which is also a festive month, could be a period when your stock numbers could be a little dicey.
So as I mentioned, sir, we now have to have a twin balance sheet. But I mean, we know that for sure that the government is collecting data much accurately. Under the P2, there are still non-reporting mills there. So we assume that the government number of 8 million is right. And if you take a crushing beginning, say, 5th of November or 1st of...
No, I'm not doubting the 8 million number. What I'm saying, does it make sense to actually shift from 1st of October closing stock to 31st of October? What makes sense in view of the change in the crushing pattern?
I think, sir, at the end of the day, it's just the number game. Whether you have a 5 million opening stock on 1st of October or you have 2.5 on the 1st of November. But I think technically the buffer when we call about 6 million tons or 5 million tons, technically means we are carrying it for those 2 months of crushing period which we are not having. So in my opinion, I mean, we already have complication on EBP from the December to November, molasses season from November to October, and October to then sugar year from October to September. So I think the more we push on this account, I think we all know that that the buffer stock which we talk about is nothing else but to ensure that you have, for those non-2 crushing months, the stocks availability. I think it's a fair suggestion to move it to October, but I think we know that the 5 million ton which we carry is for the month of October and November.
Secondly, if push comes to shove, should the industry be pushing for more ethanol or more export? Or should not the industry be talking in terms of supplying 5.5 billion liters or 6 billion liters as against what they are supplying now?
So you see, 20% blending is government's objective, and it should be a cost-plus method rather than a push method. I think the government should pull for it, and the only pull can arrive when you have a better pricing. So if you are moving your sugar prices to around say 45 rupees, I mean every industry will feel like, okay, I'm not going to supply ethanol now. So I mean the objective is of the government. Like look at the maize. I mean technically they have moved the maize price so sharply up in order to pull that ethanol. So I think if the government puts their objective back to 10%, for example, then probably they would themselves not need it. So I personally feel that it's government role to increase the price of ethanol, to take that ethanol from the system. I mean, if they say tomorrow that okay, sugar price at 45,000 rupees in UP and ethanol at 60, I mean, even sugarcane juice will not be sustainable on that path. So I think we have the asset at 9.25 billion liters, and we are talking about more investment as Manohar bhai just said it. So I think to achieve that, the government has to pull for the ethanol rather than industry needs to push for the ethanol.
Thank you so much. I think we would be concluding the discussions here. Any other question? Because we have a little time constraint, the next session has to start. We will take the question offline. Thank you so much. I would love to thank my panelists. What lovely session we had. I hope we've given a lot to think and to chew. And thank you so much, the wonderful audience. Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you. We conclude the first session for the day. I would also like to thank the wonderful panel for giving a very interesting start to the second day of our conference. So thank you so much for that. I would like to request Mr. Claudio Kovric to join us on stage and felicitate this wonderful panel. Thank you so much. We'll begin with the moderator, Ms. Parshwati Saha. Can we please give a hand to our moderator and our panelists? Mr. S.L. Sharma. Mr. Manohar Joshi. Mr. Kapil Nema. And our last panelist, Mr. Rahil Shaikh. I request my audience to give us a loud round of cheer as we conclude the first panel session for the day. Let's please come together for a group photograph. I request you to come forward.